Hi guys, today I'm taking you to Russia and to what is, at least for my taste, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. I'm talking about Saint Petersburg. I see plenty of reasons to talk about it. It's extremely aesthetical as a city, with its mix of classicism and fantasy. It's also a great city of culture, and maybe more importantly, the history of Saint Petersburg merges with that of Russia since the foundation of the city about 3 centuries ago by the Tsar Peter the Great. So this will give me a good opportunity also to talk about Russia in general. And finally, maybe also because the very existence of this city and its history are telling us many things about the identity of Russia. Saint Petersburg was built essentially to open a window on the Western world, on Europe, on international trade, and in the vision of its founder, Peter the Great, the city was almost like a weapon against the traditions and what he saw like the backwardness of his own country. So that by talking about St. Petersburg, I am also going to tell you about the very specific nature of the Russian identity, this temptation to look west, to westernize and embrace what is seen as modernity, and at the same time the temptation to focus on Russia's very strong historic traditions and culture, its religious origins too, that defined and continue to define parts of the Russian identity and the way they deal with the rest of the world. So I think it also sheds light on present day. Let's start our story. To understand the foundation of St. Petersburg at the very beginning of the 18th century, in 1703, we need to talk about the situation of Russia in the 17th century. We are used today to consider Russia more like a predator, a powerful player in international relations. But this has not always been the case. Actually, the emergence of the modern state of Russia has been a very tough struggle. It all started with the Grand Duchy of Muscovy, which was actually just one principality among others, with Moscow as the capital, and in a few centuries, this Duchy of Muscovy, annexed by diplomacy and war, other states sharing a similar Russian culture. The biggest Russian opponent to this policy of expansion being probably the city of Novgorod, which is a small provincial city today, but was once a very prosperous trade node connecting the north of Europe and Scandinavia with the Byzantine Empire. At the end of the 15th century, Novgorod was annexed to the Duchy of Muscovy by Ivan III, and this policy of expansion would continue in the following decades, especially under Ivan IV, also known as Ivan the Terrible, who reigned in the 16th century and continued the expansion of the Duchy of Muscovy south and east, making the territory of Muscovy expand towards the Black Sea and Siberia. But this policy of expansion came with constant wars, south and east, with the populations of Mongol origin that arrived from Asia centuries before, and on the west borders the situation was not easier, because Muscovy was faced with two powerful opponents: Poland, which in the 15th and 16th centuries was a great power in Central Europe, and north of Poland, the Kingdom of Sweden, which had its own expansionist strategy around the Baltic Sea. In the middle of the 16th century, Ivan IV, Ivan the Terrible, transformed this large Duchy of Muscovy into Russia, and was proclaimed Tsar of Russia. However, during his reign, the access of Russia to the Baltic Sea was lost to Sweden, and during the whole 17th century, Russia continued to expand towards Siberia and the south, but was denied an access to the sea, except in the very north of Russia to the White Sea, but this access to the sea was almost unusable during most of the year, because it was closed to the Arctic Circle. Despite this successful expansion, Russia remains extremely backward in comparison with the rest of Europe in the 17th century. It is a country with no universities at a time when in Western Europe the emerging powers of Spain, France, England are making fast technical progress and colonization of the world. It's a country extremely closed to the rest of the world. The Russian citizens are not allowed to leave the country except for exceptional reasons such as embassies. There is almost no trade flows with the rest of the world. The only exception to it being the presence of a few British merchants that came to Russia at the beginning of the 17th century, but this is fairly marginal, and the true powerful social groups in Russia are the church and the nobility. The church is very connected to the identity of Russia, because Russia and Russian culture came out of the same Greek and Roman and then Christian matrix than the rest of Europe, but with very strong particularities, because it was far from the rest of Europe, because the religion was different too. You know that Christianism has several branches. The historic branch is the Roman Catholic Church, but in the course of history other branches have appeared, and this includes the Orthodox Church, which was the religion of the Byzantine Empire and Russia, the Anglican Church that appeared in Britain for religious but also political reasons, or Protestantism and the Reformation in general. The Orthodox Church in Russia was extremely powerful. It had been used as a tool to mobilize and control the population. It saw itself as the descendants of the true Christian tradition after the fall of Byzantium, and this clergy was extremely conservative and attached to traditions. So was the nobility, which lived very much like the rest of Europe in feudal times, with a very tight control of the peasants and a very strong social and political conservatism. Just to give you an idea about the power of the church in Russia, in the 16th or 17th century. I could mention the fact that 2/3 of the land belonged to the church. What would totally change the situation would be the arrival of a new Tsar, Peter the First, better known as Peter the Great. He was born in the second half of the 17th century in 1672, and he became nominally Tsar very young, at the age of 10, in 1682. The important thing is that during his education he understood or realized that Russia was staying on the sidelines of history. There was a very important progress going on in Western Europe. The world was fastly changing, and in the middle of that, isolated, Russia was not adapting to these new times. It was not participating in the affairs of the world, especially because of its absence of access to the seas, and he decided that he would be a reformator of his country. The work of Peter the Great is extremely impressive. He reigned for more than 40 years, until 1725, and the constant direction of his policy has been to try and turn Russia into a relevant great power by modernizing it, by fighting against the conservatism and the very traditional way of seeing things that he faced in the clergy or the nobility, by trying to open Russia as much as possible and make it a place where technical progress, the taste for discoveries and inventions would exist as much as in the rest of Europe. His priority as the ruler of Russia has been to secure this access to the seas that Russia was desperately needing. And there were several possibilities to access the sea. One was south of Russia, trying to connect with the Black Sea, and in the first years of his reign he went to war with the Khanate of Crimea, which occupied the northern shores of the Black Sea and was allied with the Ottomans. This war was victorious, and he gained access to a port on the Black Sea, but not enough to satisfy his ambitions, especially since the Black Sea was a closed sea, and that the Ottomans retained control of the access to it, which was passing through the straits between Europe and the Middle East. His most important opponent would be Sweden. In the 17th and 18th centuries, Sweden was a great military power. The country had a limited population, only a bit more than 2 million inhabitants, but it also had a very professional and well-organized army, a very modern one too, with a strong discipline, and this was a particularly tough enemy for Russia. But the access to the Baltic Sea was vital for Russia, and as Sweden was surrounded with enemies, Peter I took the opportunity when it happened and entered a war together with Poland and Denmark against Sweden. The King of Sweden at the beginning of the 18th century was a very capable military leader, Charles XII, and there would be several battles in the first years of the 18th century between Russia and Sweden, generally Swedish victories, even when the Swedish army was clearly outnumbered by the Russians, thanks to their discipline and tactical abilities. But after huge efforts to modernize the army, and also by using the strategy of the scorched earth, which is the best weapon of Russia against invasions, thanks to its huge surface. Peter the Great finally managed to isolate and beat the Swedish army at the Battle of Poltava in 1709. A few years before, in 1703, as he had secured control of an access to the Baltic Sea in the Gulf of Finland, he founded Saint Petersburg, initially as a fortress that would command the access to the region. The idea to turn this fortification into a city came to him 3 years later, in 1706, because he came to the conclusion that the site could be excellent for one of his projects, the creation of a city that would be an open window towards the rest of the world and Western Europe in particular. The site was well connected to the network of rivers in Russia, the north of Russia in particular. The river that passes in the region is the Neva, but the Neva was directly connected to a gigantic lake about 50 miles east of the Gulf of Finland, and this lake gave good access to the network of rivers. And it was also possible for large ships to access this haven, so that the site had its advantages. It also had big disadvantages. First, the region was like a gigantic marsh. The climate was not very favorable, and second, the war with Sweden was not over yet. It would be over much later, only in 1721, 15 years after he decided to develop the city. So it looked like a dangerous location to found a new city, and it also looked quite dangerous to invest so far from the historical heart of Russia and the Muscovy, which was the city of Moscow. However, because he was strongly attached to the project, and because there was probably no better option, the decision to voluntarily develop a large city was taken and confirmed in the following years. The capital city of Russia being moved to Saint Petersburg in 1712. Guys, I'm realizing that I've been speaking almost 30 minutes and I have not said half of what I wanted to say. So I'm going to do this in two parts. That's going to be all for today, and I will continue the story in the second part. As usual, I hope you found it interesting, and I will do my best not to make you wait too much before I post the second part. Take care. Bye bye.